close the gap.
You
It doesn't close the gap.
Yeah.
Damn it. It sucks too because all my brothers can grow like beards and mustaches, right? But like my younger brother Jordan and I grow this shit of a facial hair, and
Have
my
you
twin
seen-
brother and my middle brother can grow full on beards.
Have you seen that that ad for that little fucking roller of like pokey needle things you can
Trust
do
me,
to, like,
I've
you got one?
had it. I've had it in my cart like 8 times where I've almost bought it.
You do have to be careful with those from what I was reading, because if you do it too much, you can fuck your face up, like get infected and shit. Yeah. Not just from injuries, right? Because you're kind of stabbing yourself is really what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, and two, because I was looking at
Put that phone on vibrate, you son of a bitch.
Just like different things you can do or take, but like it enhances all the hair growth. And like I don't want to be Anthony Davis with like a unibrow and shit and pubes out my fucking wazoo just to grow a mustache.
I'm like my grandfather. I got some bushes in my ears, in my fucking nose. I'm always like just trying to get that shit out.
I do too. Fuck. It's a peach fucking haze when you look up my nose.
Right, it's like I'm breathing through filters.
Yeah. At least, well, as long as it doesn't start to grow in our nose and out of our ears uncontrollably.
Well, that's what mine are getting. It's getting like.
Well, you're old as fuck though, so
I'm not that old.
I know you're not.
You're gonna be our first 50-year-old friend.
Probably. You know
that's gonna make us feel like
funny. You know what's funny? All my friends in this town are actually like fucking pushing 50. I'm like the youngest in the group.
So that's why he needs us, so he can like just feel better about himself.
No, it's because all
like,
those
look
little
at these
fucks don't know how to game.
Oh, you know who I miss because of
Corey sold his shit.
Is Clam. I miss Clam.
He was on the other day. I almost fucking. I almost said, well, I was playing with Jordan and his party was full, so I was like, I'll hit up Clam another day. You know, he's gonna keep playing it
every Sunday morning. He's usually on. Yeah. No, I miss Clam. That's the thing I miss the most, and I can't help it, man. I was fucking broke.
Hey, I know.
Wear things away.
I know.
We're good now. We're not bleeding. Wounds packed, but it needs changed.
I turned it on last night to try to play for a couple hours, and I didn't have that fun.
It's easier when you're with
than I used to have.
Well, when you're with friends too, it's fun. So like me and Jordan were playing it together, just fucking killing it. That proximity chat's hilarious.
Yeah. I did download Path of Titans, and that's a dinosaur game. So I was just running around as a little dinosaur, trying to fuck shit up. And then a T-Rex ate me. It was real shitty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's like Ark, but you're a dinosaur. It's pretty cool.
All right.
That does sound cool. You got to build a nest to lay your eggs and shit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let's get the intro in real quick. 5 seconds. I can't help the clock there.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test. Citizens are advised to take the following steps. If exposed, remove the emergency broadcast system.
Podcast for the curious mind. I don't know what that means.
Broadcasting live from a German-made microphone deep within the multifamily bunker. I am Jamal, here with the crypto genius and color commentary, May and Devin. How you guys doing today?
Hi.
Listen, we got to play the game right away. Let's just get it out of the way right now.
Where in the world is
Bazooka Jew Cohen?
Yeah. I didn't even look yet. Oh.
Where is Spike Cohen today?
You know what? I have no clue.
He's at home, actually, oddly enough.
Oh! Is that real?
Hi, Devin.
Oh, shit. You're fucking kidding me. I thought you were paying my American Express fucking credit card bill as he's playing that fucking thing. What's up, man?
Hey, man, how are you doing?
I'm good.
I'm good. Well, good, and I'm doing well. Catching up on a couple of the shows that
Oh
I
God.
just ghosted completely when my schedule went insane in the last couple months. And that includes this one. And I came on for two reasons. One, first of all, to apologize to all three of you and to your audience for that. And two, to actually be on your show. So here I am.
Awesome.
Thanks, Mike.
I mean, you broke Devin's heart big time. He was in shambles for like a month. It
I
was.
know.
We thought we were gonna have to send him to recovery.
I know, and that was a valid response to that. But I now, like, that's understandable. It broke my heart as much. It actually hurt me more than it hurt you. But here I am, and now all things are made well again.
Nice.
Thanks,
You
Mike.
I had no fucking clue.
Oh, it was killing me. It was killing me. Well, I'll be honest. I thought for a good 2 months, this was one of the best pranks that had been done for the show. That someone was just pretending to be Spike Cohen, and they were just constantly being like,
No, he'll totally be on. Yeah, he'll be on. No. He's really busy. Yeah.
We need to start doing that to other people. That would be great.
Well, there was actually a couple people during that time, because it's Brian that you work with who does the scheduling, and there were a couple of people who were like, "Listen, Brian, if you don't know Spike, just tell us. Like, you know, if you don't, if this was all, but you know, he's even got the at Spike Cohen address, or like if you're spoofing his address, like just let us know. We're really trying to find him. You know, if you don't, like,
Brian is causing a shitstorm.
Yes.
No, it was me. No, it was me causing it, and Brian having to say, "No, I really know Spike. We're friends." And he's like having to text people pictures of us together, and they're like, you know, listen, if that's not you, just like let us know, man. We're just trying to find Spike.
That's a great Photoshop, Brian.
Yeah, good.
Brian, he needs to be at the top of the Christmas list. He needs a really nice present for dealing all the bullets.
Even before all of this, he deserves that. He is he's the reason I'm able to keep my schedule going. It's reached my schedule. This is actually, I'm now in what I call my hibernation mode, where I might do like one in-person event in the next 2 or 3 months, if at all. Just because it's the holiday season, there's not a lot going on in terms of, like, you know, events to speak at and stuff like that. But during the rest of the year, it's just, I don't even schedule stuff. Like when I have, you know, friends or family that want to see me, I literally will contact Brian and say, look, I'm going to be spending, you know, a few hours next week to, you know, on Friday with some, you know, family. Is that going to work? Yeah, I can move some stuff around. Yeah, we can make that work. I mean, that's how tight it is. So no, he definitely is on the nice list, I guess.
Well, we love you, Spike, and we appreciate you coming on the show. So we really do.
Thank you. I love you guys too, and I'm happy to be on.
So Devin, I think Devin was the one that really introduced me to Libertarian Party. You know, the whole idea of libertarianism. And then I had a couple other friends that I was like, "Oh, Spike Cohen, you gotta talk to Spike Cohen about it." And I was talking to, you know, I'm in a very Republican state of South Dakota, which, you know, I enjoy conservative values to an extent as well, you know, but very, very conservative here. And I told them, like, yeah, I'm having this libertarian on. They're like, you're having a liberal on?
What you gonna do having one of them on for?
A libtardian? Why would you have?
Yeah. What's that?
Why would you have that on your show? I don't understand. Yeah,
but there seems to, I don't know. There always seems to be some sort of confusion between the two, and they couldn't be further apart. I mean, really, you're further apart from both parties. Do you mind if we talk about that? I mean, I'd love to just ask you some questions on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd be happy to. I live in South Carolina, which is like South Dakota on the water, basically, in terms of politics. So actually, that's not fair, because I would say your brand of conservatism is actually more libertarian than ours. Like, and it is. We are having a contest of which snail has the highest vertical leap, but it's definitely closer. You know, your state never locked down. Our state, they tried pushing that nonsense for the better part of like 2 or 3 weeks before we were like, no, you're not going to tell us we can't go to the beach. It was, but they actually tried it here. We have like the worst. Here I am bitching about my state. We have like the worst gun laws in the state. We have the worst taxes in the state. South Carolina is the New York of the South when it comes to like, like just the laws and everything. But yes, I'd be happy to answer your question because then otherwise it's me just bitching about Henry McMaster.
It seems like no matter you go hard left or hard right,
yes,
you sort of eventually come to this sort of a totalitarian rule of law.
Yeah.
Or rule through chaos. And libertarians are, I would say, probably the most extreme version of conservatism when it comes to their view on government. Am I understanding that right?
So, this is where the labels get weird, right? Right, left, conservative, liberal, and all of that stuff. The way I put it, and yes, that is a good way to put it. The way I put it kind of structures it a little bit less confusingly by setting some labels differently. I consider myself very conservative in how I am. I'm very much a traditionalist. I am a husband of one woman. I am, very, monogamous. I live by fairly traditional values. I'm a recovering addict, so I don't drink. I don't do drugs. You'd be forgiven if you thought I was Mormon. Like it's very like my day-to-day lifestyle is what you would call very conservative. I don't have any interest in telling anyone else how to live their lives as long as they're not harming me or anyone else directly. That's the libertarianism.
Yes.
So you will find, it's very interesting going to like a liberty event or a libertarian party event or anything liberty leaning, because you'll have people that are even more traditional than me. You will have people that are, almost Amish in the way that they live. And then you'll have like people that, are living in quadruples and stuff like that. And pansexual and all the, pansexual communes and stuff like that. And the reason why it's like that is because this person who is, almost Amish, and this person who is in some kind of kaleidoscope life, they don't care how the other person's living. And even if they find it, off-putting or disgusting or just not their fit, they recognize that person's not hurting anyone else or hurting them directly in any way. And so they're fine with it. And what's interesting about that is that they often are able to get along at least somewhat, because that whole tension of that's a threat to my way of life is gone. So, Larry Sharp, who's another great libertarian communicator, the way he puts it is libertarianism says you can be as liberal or as conservative as you want to be, as long as you don't put it on anyone else. So when it comes to like the values of what libertarians think when it comes to government, depending on which libertarian you think you're talking to, they either want the government to be this minimal thing that is small enough to just keep the basic function of society, like the courts, maybe the roads. Some of them don't even want them handling the infrastructure. Maybe the basic law enforcement, just the basic structure. And then some of us want government to be small enough to drown in a bathtub and then consider if the baby's viable or not. So it really depends on who you're asking that question when it comes to like what we think about government. But it definitely, we all agree, we want it way smaller than pretty much almost anyone else. There are some edgy conservatives who kind of come with us on when it comes to the the size of government. But yeah, that's how I would put that.
I mean, you talk about the size of government being small. I think a lot of people feel like, well, it should provide defense. That's one role, and then the court system, all that stuff. And then you have some people that are just straight up anarchy. Just see what happens. I think there's got to be some sort of balance in the middle.
Well, I mean, balance between those things. I mean, either the government is a minimum night watchman state type of thing, or it just doesn't exist. So I guess maybe the balance between those things would be that even something like defense could be outsourced or left to a militia style system, with the inherent understanding that that means we don't get involved in other countries' affairs. There is no any kind of foreign presence unless it's to, deal with an immediate threat. There's no occupations. There's no participation in multinational, treaty organizations or military organizations. We have whatever, minimal thing is necessary to make it clear that attacking or invading us is a terrible idea. And I'll tell you something, I tend to lean more towards the anarchy or free market society side of these things. And I think probably the biggest two deterrents we could have to being, actually the three biggest deterrents we could have to being attacked or invaded by anyone is staying out of people's business so there's no reason to do that. Having just about every person armed and trained in the use of that arm, sort of the, a rifle behind every blade of grass mentality. And also having such a strong, prosperous economy and such open trade relations with everyone that it would be stupid to threaten that. Like just the threat, the blow to your economy to invade us would be terrible, not to mention the fact that you'd lose because we've already demonstrated we won't even tolerate being governed domestically, much less by you. So I think that's where I lean on that. But yeah, if there's going to be a government, whatever we want to call that, then yeah, having either through a militia system or a very minimal military presence, again, domestically, to be able to make it clear that, it's not a good idea to attack us. I think that would probably be one of the basic functions. But I think the reason that I don't often get into the debate between what we call minarchy, very minimal government, or anarchy, or even the people who call themselves micro-kiss, that's a new one I heard, is that we're so far away from any of that. Like if anarchy is, exit 105 and minarchy is exit 98, we are currently in a being held hostage in the back of a tractor trailer going 80 miles an hour towards the guardrails off the cliff. Like it to argue over which exit, when we can successfully turn this thing around and start heading in the right direction, which exit we should get off on. To me, I mean, it's it's fine having those discussions or whatever, but it's not where my main focus are. Like there are people that will not work with people who don't have their vision of whatever utopia is going to look like. And I find that I increasingly have little time to have any serious debate on that when we're literally headed for to go off the cliff.
I mean, at what point, Spike, did you? Because from what I read in your bio was that you started off as was it neoconservative? I think was one of the terms I seen. And that was during the Bush time, I believe, Bush era, right?
Yes. I was, and in my defense, I was, 19, 20 years old. These people that are in their 50s and started thinking that, I don't know what to tell you about them. But I was 19. I was 19 years old when 9/11 happened. And prior to that, I would say leaned libertarian. I had grown up, my dad was very clear in talking with me. He's like, because I'm Jewish, and my dad would say things like, listen, anytime that they have tried to round us all up and kill us, first thing they do is make sure we don't have any arms, because it's a lot easier to do it to us if we're defenseless. And that really stuck with me, even as I'm sure I was probably like 7 or 8 when he first said that to me. That made sense. Like that made perfect sense. So I've always been like an absolutist on the Second Amendment. And I also, when it came to like drugs and things like that, I'm like, I don't, people should be able to put whatever they want in their body. But on the rest of the things, like if you ask me my thoughts on like healthcare or foreign policy or, at pretty much anything else, I didn't really have much thought about it. When 9/11 happened, I was horrified. And I bought the government and corporate media hook, line, and sinker. We were attacked because we were just so darn free. And these evil terrorists who have nothing redeemable about them, they're Sauron. They're like some kind of abstraction. They're not actual human beings. And they just hate us because our women are wearing those tight shorts and we listen to rock music or whatever the hell. Like it was funny because they would say, because we're so free, they didn't even really have to elucidate on that. Like they didn't really have to articulate what that even meant. It just, years of being told you're free, we're a free country, it just, the jingoism immediately hit. And I'm like, yeah, we're so damn free and we're peaceful too. And if we have to bomb every single country and remove every leader that opposes us to show them our peaceful, democratic and free ways, then we'll do it. And if we have to spy on every person in this country domestically to make sure that they aren't even saying anything negative about this war effort, then we'll do that too. And it sounds ridiculous now, but as fervently as I believe in what I believe now, was as fervently as I was a neocon, Republican type, a George W. Bushophile, dyed in the wool. And it took some very annoying libertarians, I'd say probably the biggest one was a guy named Matt Kibbe. And he's still around now. He used to be with a group called Freedom Works. Now he has his own thing called Free the People. Yeah, Free the People. And Freedom Works used to be an email list. This was before social media. And he would send these emails out to conservatives saying, if you want a smaller government that's not in your life, you're not going to get that with a global empire that is spying on you domestically and putting Americans in cages without trial and sending them off to foreign countries to be waterboarded and, running up trillions of dollars in debt. And it was, I couldn't, I'm like, this guy siding with the Muslims and he's a threat to the American way. And, he and people like Ron Paul and others, they made these predictions about what would happen, that we would not be greeted as liberators, that, over time it would turn out we were being lied to, and there'd be this sort of drip, drip, drip of, oh, that was a lie, that was a lie, that was a lie. And I remember, around like the mid 2000s being really, really angry. And I realized that the reason I was angry was because I was wrong and I knew it. And I thought, well, there's a simple fix to that. Stop being so damn wrong. So I realized I wasn't a neocon, but I thought, I got here in a very ad hoc way. I never have really thought about what my philosophy is, what it is I think about things. And so I started doing, reading. I started everything from, I like to say I did everything from, Mises to Marx and everything in between. I pretty much stayed in the anti-authoritarian side of the spectrum. And it's funny, people think when I say Marx and anti-authoritarian, they laugh. But Marx's writings initially were, in his words, anti-authoritarian. It was then when he expanded upon it, well, here's how we're going to function, it became very authoritarian very quickly. But so I read all of the different things and came away saying, well, I'm definitely a libertarian. And then over time, not shortly, it didn't take too long, the meme about what's the difference between a libertarian and an anarchist, about 6 months, that's not far off. That's about, it took about a year. And then I thought, you know what? Now I got to explain to my family that I'm an anarchist. And it's been just a joyful experience ever since.
You would have to think that, listening to you talk about during the Bush era after 9/11, the amount of propaganda that was being pushed out, and really before internet had taken full hold yet. Yeah. So it's really the last effective propaganda campaign I feel the U.S. has run, as far as when it comes. I guess you could say COVID was.
There's a lot of anti-Russia shit going around, bro, and like pro-Ukrainian, like the sniper, the Ukrainian pilot that's shooting down all the Russian planes.
The ghost
you know what I mean? I'm like, how true is that shit? You know what I mean? Like, that's all third-party CIA fucking prop. You ask me. How I got in a libertarian party was because of Ron Paul, and he was like my first like guy that I'm like, this guy's fucking awesome, and I believe like a lot of what he says is how shit should go. And then I started delving into it more. But
so interesting about that, when I would watch those, because I'd watch the Ron Paul's emails and videos he'd put out, him being quoted on, I'd watch him. I'm saying videos he put out. This was before YouTube. I'm watching him on Fox. I'm watching him on, MSNBC or, whatever he's on. And because I constantly watched Fox and really a lot of cable news in general, which was probably another problem that I had. And I'd watch him come on and he would make my blood boil. This guy, what kind of Republican are you? They should kick you out of the party. Like, I was that guy. And it's why I got mad when it was obvious that he was right and like about the whole thing. And it was like, I agree with you on so much. Why are you so damn wrong on this? It was like, no, because he's not wrong. You're wrong. And so it's interesting that way with the propaganda campaigns. That was the last time that the government was able to, so far anyway, that the government was able to successfully get us to say, yep, we need to send our loved ones over there to fight. I'm not sure that'll ever happen again. And certainly not as easily. It will take something very intense like a 9/11 or worse to get us behind it. And the thing is, if it's similar to a 9/11 where thousands of people die and the people behind it put out a manifesto saying, we did this because of what you're doing here, it's going to be a lot harder for the government to convince the public. Not that it'll be impossible, but it will be harder than it was in 2001 to convince us that the best way forward is to just blow up another country, especially if on social media the leader of the country that terrorist is in is saying, we're trying to negotiate. We want to hand this guy over to someone, keep us out of this, which is what was happening, but we didn't know it because we were just hearing it from cable news. So it would definitely be harder. But the thing is, what we learned, we saw it with the COVID regime. We're seeing it now with how they're increasingly how they're messaging climate change. They can make people scared of something. And if they can make them scared of it, they can push any temporary measure that they want on us. And I'll tell you right now, what the reason that we aren't still in lockdowns and that the most, if not all of the mandates, vaccine and mask mandates have gone away and probably will never come back. That's not because things got better. Look at the U.S. the COVID numbers in the U.S. COVID is as widespread now as it's ever been. The death numbers are continuing to drop as herd immunity is becoming at least somewhat of a thing. But the cases are still through the roof, and you have the CDC telling people not to even bother getting tested anymore, and the cases are still through the roof. So COVID is going as stronger as it's ever been. The reason that they've had to move on from it is that a large and growing number of the public are like, no, you're not doing this anymore. We're sick of it. We're not going to let you. And that speaks to what the most important, if there's nothing else besides my apology that you remember from any of this, I would like you to know, and that it hurt me more than any of you. The third thing that I need all of you to know and everyone watching this to know and take away from this is that there is no such thing as government power. What there is what the state, the government, which is really just the people in the government, are able and willing to enforce, and what the people are willing to tolerate. And when I say the people, it's got to be pretty much almost all of them, because if even like 1 to 3, maybe 4% of the people insistently refuse to comply, it becomes effectively impossible to stop them. It becomes this like triage thing of doing their best to beat down on the people that are refusing. And as more and more people join them, we saw this with mask mandates, we saw this with lockdowns, we saw this with to some extent with vaccine mandates, with employers refusing to enforce these things. As that happens, more and more people are looking, going, well, wait, if they're not doing it, I don't have to do it. And as that number balloons, it becomes impossible to even pretend that they're able to enforce it. And that's when they go, okay, listen, we don't need to do this anymore. And the reason that they do that is because otherwise they have to let go of the illusion that they actually can really stop all of us in the first place. That I loved the spirit behind the Area 51, let's all storm Area 51. They can't stop us all. I loved the spirit of it because it was true that if like 1 million people showed up to Area 51, we could literally just walk in. Like there's nothing they could do. We weren't going to do that. And it did lead to a few people like Naruto running in front of local news. That was kind of fun. But the spirit behind, like, they actually can't just stop us all from doing something. That's the important takeaway, is that, an unjust order or rule is best met with large and vocal and active non-compliance. Mass non-compliance fixes it pretty quickly often.
What do you think, though, about I think we got a good idea of what happens when a person who's not a politician gets voted into power, with what happened to Donald Trump, and the fact that he wasn't a politician, and the news media sort of turns into this Praetorian Guard that just will erode until people are sick enough to not have it. And you also see this, concerted effort by the State Department to undermine, if they did not have good relations with Donald Trump. And I point to Syria as an example, where president orders everyone out of Syria. State Department leaves people in Syria and just says, oh yeah, we did it. So they're running, their own military campaigns while we're pretending to have some sort of president run things here. How do you get rid of the State Department, through this process? So even if you vote in a Ron Paul or some other person who has libertarian values, you're pretty much declaring a war on the State Department.
Yeah, and see, that's what needed to have happened. If Donald Trump had wanted to, and we can talk about how sincere he was in actually wanting to do those things, but if Donald Trump had actually wanted to completely restructure how government works, he would have had to declare war on it. It wasn't just appoint people he thought were good people to head it. You have such a large leviathan and almost immeasurable, or certainly unaccountable, and not just unaccountable as in they aren't held to account, unaccountable as in there's no way to account for everything they're doing, administrative state that we have. And we can thank many other Congresses and presidents that came before Trump and the Congresses he had for that. They've abdicated all of their authority to the president, who for the most part abdicated his authority to a bunch of a bunch of bureaucrats. And so you have this sort of bureaucratic superstate. And so that's what happened. Now, what's interesting when it comes to foreign policy, the State Department and the neoliberal order that runs the State Department, the Pentagon, the intelligence services, and so forth, they figured out about 2 years in that they could play to Donald Trump's ego, and basically, instead of saying, "Oh, you have to do this. This is the current order," and he's like, "Well, I like breaking orders." It almost like played into his whole shtick. And then they're like, "You're gonna let China punk you like that? You're gonna let Russia treat you like a bitch? General Soleimani thinks you're a pussy." And then that got, and they were literally saying, keep in mind, they weren't just saying this, in so many words.
Did you see some old 90-year-old being like,
I think you're a pussy, Trump.
Yeah, no, but literally, and it worked. He's like, "I'm no pussy," and then it worked. And they would do it like John Bolton going in front of the media and saying, "I know this president. He's not going to let anyone talk to him like that," because he knew he watched Fox at 5 a.m. on the toilet or whatever on his phone. But like they got away with doing that because they figured out how to play him. And so you had a president that went from saying, "I'm going to end our involvement in any of these wars. I'm going to bring the troops home and everything." And it started good on that. I will tell you that. Started good on that. He went from that to literally assassinating a head of a military of a country that we were not in any kind of active military engagement with, in a third-party country that we were occupying. And which, thank God, the Iranians did not want to turn that into a bigger thing. They would have been completely justified in doing so, and they could have killed thousands of Americans. And yes, there would have then been a bunch of bombings on the American side that would have killed God knows how many Iranians. Not that would have been a good thing, but thousands or even tens of thousands of Americans could have died as a result of that, not to mention all of the Iraqis that would have been killed in all of that, all because they were able to figure out that they could convince that they thought he was a bitch. And it was, I mean, this was the Donald Trump that met with Kim Jong-un. Like that, I will tell you something. As someone who is not a Donald Trump fan by any measure, I liked that stuff. That 2017, 2018 foreign policy Trump was like, okay, you know what? If the rest of this stuff isn't going how I want it, whatever. If nothing, I've learned to be disappointed when it comes to Republicans and Democrats in office. But I don't know, man. If we get this kind of a foreign, this, I guess we could at that time call it a Trumpian foreign policy. I'm with it. Like I'm actually not mad at this. And then they were able to figure out how to do that. But the answer is a Ron Paul, a whoever you want to name, a libertarian getting in there. The first thing, especially if they don't have any kind of, real, sizable majority or plurality in Congress, the only thing, and certainly the main thing that they should be doing is just going through the entire registry of executive orders and regulations that don't require any input from Congress and just go into town with it. I used to say during the campaign, I'm like, if we get in there, we're going to need the biggest shredders you've ever seen, because it's just going to be industrial, like entire page loads of executive orders just shredded. Do you know we're under something like 40 emergency orders, some of which have been spanning since I believe either the 70s or 80s? We're under one that happened under the Clinton administration that was supposed to be a temporary order to not allow U.S. Vessels to go near Cuban waters because we were concerned about them being shot at after an incident that happened. That's still going now, like 35 years. 35 years late, 30 some odd years later. So that's what a Ron Paul or a whatever libertarian would have to do in there, is just go to town on the paperwork behind the administrative state, which then leads to massive firings, massive furloughs, and massive people just sitting around not having anything to do.
Yeah, it would definitely be quite the undertaking as far as going. I mean, I think the last person, honestly, to do it would have been, was it JFK? Probably the one that maybe. No, I wouldn't say Reagan. Reagan was pretty neo.
No, God, Reagan was terrible.
Yeah,
I would even JFK. It's hard to tell what all he wanted to do because he wasn't there very long. But I mean, remember JFK got us into Vietnam because he didn't like the Vatican appealed to him directly. That he was a Catholic, and they were like, our Catholic country is under siege by the communists, and that got us into Indochina, which was later called Vietnam. I'm not 100% sure Kennedy would have been what a lot of people hope he would, but I guess we'll never know. FDR or LBJ certainly wasn't. I would say the last president that looked at the role of president as this, attempt to at least stop government from getting any bigger and maybe even cut it back a little bit was Coolidge. Coming off of the Woodrow Wilson years, and he recognized that government was plenty big and had run up plenty of debt and was spending way too much. If anything, it needed to be cut back. I wouldn't necessarily say he was a libertarian, but he certainly understood government was doing way too much, which of course is like, I mean, it's pennies on the dollar what they do now, but back then. But that would be the president that I would say was the last one to actually try to keep government in some kind of check.
Now you're running a I forgot my notebook actually. You are the power. Is it .net? You are the power.net.
You are the power.net. Yeah.
Tell us, how does that sort of tie into, your long-term goals with libertarianism? This venture you're on now.
Sure, and I appreciate you giving me a chance to talk about it. Liberty. We've seen every single election cycle. We see libertarians who, in my estimation, are head and shoulders above their competition in terms of their character, their values, their actual solutions to the problem, even their understanding of what the problem is, their refusal to pander to, corporatist talking points, their refusal to take, corporate money to just become the new pawns of the oligarch. They are, by all accounts, should absolutely, if the debates were a game of Jeopardy where they were asked to explain functions of governments, they'd run circles around their competition. They have the most competence. They have the best understanding of the issues. They have the best solutions, and they have the best values and character. And they get 2%, 1%. Sometimes they'll shock the world and get 10% or 20%, but they don't win. We win local elections. We won hundreds of those. But we don't win. We've never won a statewide or federal race ever in our 51 going on 52 year history. We've never, ever done that. And the reason for that is because even though the vast majority of the American public is pissed off done with the status quo. They keep supporting the status quo because it's all they know. They don't know any better. They know that this is bad, but they're convinced that the problem with this country is exactly one half of the ruling class, and the only thing that can fix it is the other half of the ruling class. And the idea that it's the entire ruling class that's the problem evades them because they're not even being exposed to these ideas. And the problem is when we try to expose them to our ideas by running for office, they go, all right, well, you can't win. And they make that a reality. Because if everyone thinks we can't win and doesn't vote for us, we can't win. And if they don't even let us on the ballot or make it hard for us to get on the ballot and fight as hard as they can to keep us off the debate stage, we functionally can't win. And the only way around all of those different problems, the problem of recognition, you mentioned people here libertarian, and a lot of people think liberal, or they might know libertarian, but they have some weird caricature of who we are that isn't true. Name recognition, us being tied to losing and not winning, which is a big problem. People not realizing that there's a viable alternative from the Republicans and Democrats, and people hurting right now. All of that is solved by creating a culture of people who demand liberty, who intuitively understand that the problem is statism and that the solution is liberty, and building that movement of people, working at using things that they care about and building out what that means and how liberty could fix those problems. And that's what You Are the Power does. That's a lot of pretty words, but it doesn't actually explain what we do. What we do is we find people who are being mistreated, abused, neglected by their local government, and they are outraged about it. There are other people in the community that are outraged about it, but they don't have the wherewithal or the knowledge of how to organize effectively to get justice and accountability. They might be able to get on the local news, but they don't know how to build a movement in their community. We find them, or they find us, and we help them organize. We help build that movement. We help set up rallies and events. We cyberbully the local government there on the media, and in front of the media, we get local media attention. We basically help them build a movement to fight against whatever's happening in that local community, and it's usually very specific to that community. Then from there, as we're winning, as we're getting the accountability and justice that people need there, we use that as an opening conversation for those activists and for that community about the base of how all this happened in the first place. So we help them now on things that matter to them, and we use that as an opening conversation about how liberty fixes all of this. And so we are growing the liberty movement by meeting people where they are, helping them solve their own problems, and showing them how they had the power all along. That's why it's called You Are the Power. And if you would like to be a part of that and become a part of the fastest growing grassroots movement of libertarians across the country working to set their communities free, one issue at a time, then I invite you to go to youarethepower.net. Membership is free. We have around 2,000 members. We are in all 50 states. We are growing every single day, and we'd love for you to join us. Youarethepower.net.
Yeah, I did join up for it myself too. I think
Awesome,
I think it's a beautiful thing because, we can talk about all these big ideas, the State Department and the presidency and the federal government, and how it should be, but in the end, totalitarianism affects individuals, and I think I forget the one guy was Rohrer, the one
Joshua Rohr. Yes.
Yeah. And there's someone that is not in the best position in his life, and going through a hard transition, and easy target to be picked on, easy target to, and it wasn't like, I mean, yes, it was unnecessary force on the police for sure, but it was no Rodney King situation, but nonetheless, it was a violation of who he was as a person, of his property, and just general sort of bullying and picking on, by the
and not just that, because yes, he wasn't beaten into a bloody pulp, although they did tase his dog Sunshine, and she ran away because she was tased. They lied to him and said that they had her in custody. They didn't, and she ended up getting hit by a car and dying. But I would argue that from a government or systemic level, the most egregious thing was that after they did all that, the DA, instead of saying, wow, this is terrible, they shouldn't have done that, we need to investigate why that happened, this guy, we need to make this guy whole, we need to fix this problem and make it right. Instead, they closed ranks around the corrupt cops. They refused to release the body cam footage. They fought in court to keep it from getting released, and he was never going to get it released until he could bring in other people to help him in his fight. And that's what we did. That's what we're continuing to do. We are now in the phase of trying to push for changes to North Carolina state law to make body cam footage release a lot easier, so you don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars in court that you may or may not have to fight to get footage from your own case released, and also to hold those officers accountable. But we're also using that. Another thing we're doing is on December 10th, because there was another situation there where they had shut down the only homeless, the city of Gastonia. That's where this happened, Gastonia, North Carolina. The city shut down the only homeless shelter in the city. And it was a church being operated by a man named Pastor Moses Colbert. And we're doing an event with him on December 10th. We'll be putting out more stuff this coming week, but we're having an event with him. We're raising funds to help buy supplies and some Christmas gifts for kids and food and things like that for those in need in Gastonia and Gaston County, which is the county that it's in. And we're doing all of these things, helping Joshua, who, by the way, he is now in housing, like he has a home that he's in, working on employment, all of the things that led to his homelessness are being addressed finally. But helping him there and continuing to help him there, helping the community there with Pastor Moses and the people he's working with on the new shelter he's building. All of that is as an opening conversation about, look at what government did to you and what we can do together to fight against what they're doing and to help each other. Doesn't look like we need them as much as we thought we did. Looks like they're actually the problem. Looks like we should be taking some of that power back and holding them accountable and demanding they don't do all of these terrible things that they're doing. So that Gastonia is a perfect example of what You Were the Power does.
And you look at people like Joshua and the self-worth he had for himself during that incident taking place. You know, it sort of reminds me how people feel with this, with our government and the left wing and right wing. It's almost like we're, well, it isn't. We are in an abusive relationship with our government.
It is. Right. It's a toxic, codependent.
Yes. And we have no self-value. And that's why I think you hear people say, well, that you'll never win against them. It just reminds me of someone who's been abused.
You'll never leave me. You'll never leave me. Yeah. And the wording they use, like I everything that government says, if you distill it down to one person if the things government says to us, if you distill it down to one person talking to another person, it sounds like an abusive spouse or parent talking to their victim about why it's okay that they do this, or why they shouldn't stop them, or why they're not going to stop, or why they can't leave, or whatever. Like, it's the exact same thing. You can't leave me. You need me. You have nothing without me, and like, it's literally a toxic, codependent relationship. It is Stockholm syndrome. It's Stockholm syndrome for the victim. And it's abuser syndrome, or whatever it's called, for government. And the thing is, most people in government, you were talking about how the terrorists aren't Sauron. Most people in government probably think they're doing the right thing, and they probably, they don't wake up going, "What terrible things can I do to the people of my community?" They wake up and think, we're doing the best we can. Gastonia, the city council I'm sure they're convinced they're doing the right thing. They had to shut this homeless shelter down because they weren't zoned right, and that could be unsafe. Well, there is no zoning for a homeless shelter in Gastonia. And then meanwhile, it just so happens that when they shut that down, they were also applying for state and federal grants to help deal with the homeless problem. Well, if you've got someone doing it on his own dime, why do you need millions of dollars? And I'm sure they've convinced themselves that was, justified in what they were doing. And the thing is, like, that's the problem, is everyone here is in this weird kind of trance of thinking that this is the best way to do things because it's always been that way. And whether you believe in anarchy or minarchy or whatever else, we already know that this isn't the best way to do it. Our problem is most people don't know that yet. They either actively disagree with us or they just don't know any better. Most people don't really have a formed opinion one way or another. It's up to us as the innovators and early adopters to bring this idea to the majority. And it's not going to happen by just running for offices. We've tried that for 50 years. It doesn't work. If anything, in some ways it backfires if that's all we're doing, because it just looks like we're the idiots who keep losing. And instead we need to be showing people how our ideas work. And I'll tell you this, because You Are the Power is a nonpartisan nonprofit. We're not here for the Libertarian Party. We're here for the liberty movement. We want a movement for liberty. And if the Libertarian Party grows as a result of it, fantastic. If the other parties just take on all the Libertarian Party ideas and there doesn't need to even be a Libertarian Party, fantastic. If everyone gets up and says, you know what, let's not do any of this anymore. Yay, free market society. Fantastic. Well, however it ends up going is fine. We're not worried about the political end of it or the electoral politics end of it. We're worried about showing people at a community level, at a cultural level, at an individual level, that they do best when they're most free, and that the problems they're facing are because there's too much power being presumed to be allowed in the hands of too few people. And that if they realize that the power's in them, that they can work together and make far better solutions than a handful of people trying to centrally plan it in a marble building somewhere. That's how we fix this.
I totally agree with that. It's a small, starting out small is the right way to go. I always feel like when I talk to people, it's like, well, it's too big and I don't want the other party to win. Like, so they vote for the other guy because even though they don't believe in him, because they're scared to death of the other one. You have that on both sides. Democrats, vote Democrat down the thing. Republicans go R down the way. They need to remove freaking that from the ballot too. You ask me. They need to get parties off of there. If you don't know who you're voting for, you should be voting. But I like where you're going, like starting out small. And the other thing that I always find is annoying is everybody know, like, the way the government speaks to us, like we're freaking dumb children, being abused.
Yes.
And you talk to other people and they hate it too, but nobody does anything about it. Like you said, you know what I mean? So now I'm glad you're doing this. I joined up just now.
You.
And
well,
then,
thank you.
Direct more people that We Are the Power.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Where's my phone? I'm not going to be the only one on this podcast that joined up here. Okay. That's just poppycock. Let me get on here.
Well, no, I appreciate that. And that's the thing, guys. Like, we have to start. First of all, you are far more likely to be affected negatively by your local government than you are by the federal government. Maybe, depending on where you are, maybe the state government would do more. But honestly, it's being enforced mostly at the local level. Like, if you look at, when you'll see a lot of these, ATF raids, for example, and you got all these people wearing ATF vests, those are usually local cops, sheriff's deputies, maybe state cops. The ATF doesn't have nearly enough people to do raids everywhere. They just give the vests and deputize them and say, here, we need you to enforce this. And so they create these law enforcement partnerships. And that's what really is the magic thing here, is that in addition to the fact that, long before anyone votes for, when I say libertarian, I don't just mean Libertarian Party, I mean like libertarian ideas. Long before they vote for that in the White House, they need to see how it works in their backyard. But also, long before we ever get to that point of taking over, taking over at the federal level, if that ever even happens, there's a lot of things you can do by essentially taking over your city or your county and just nullifying everything from there. The cannabis legalization that we're watching happen slowly, painfully slowly in this country, it started with counties and then with states saying, yeah, we're not going to enforce that anymore. And the DEA says, you have to, it's federal law. And they're like, yeah, you can come here if you want to, but we're not going to do it. We're decriminal. We're before even the legalization bills and stuff. It was cops and it was city councils and sheriffs saying, we're not going to do that. We're not, yeah, it's illegal. And that's fine, but we're not going to enforce it. We're not going to stop people from doing it. And that's nullification. It's a powerful thing.
Yeah, Wyoming did that with something with arms, and it was like, you're going to come in there and enforce it. And they're like, no, you're not. You can't, because they just, you know what I mean? If you're a resident, you can just conceal carry, which I've always believed Second Amendment is my personal concealed carry. So, you know, till that day, I'll see you in court, I guess. But
concealed and open carry. Missouri recently passed a law, and I forget the name of it, but basically it nullified it basically eliminated all state gun control, and it nullified almost all federal gun control. And the ATF put out a statement saying, if this passes, then we will not be able to do anything in Missouri. It will be effectively impossible for us to enforce any of the laws, including the ones that aren't even being nullified. We can't enforce anything in the state of Missouri. Missouri will have effectively no gun control. To which the Missouri legislature said, yes, that was exactly, yes, that was the point of what we did. Thank you for noticing. And it just goes to show that so now I have people in Missouri that they got videos on YouTube of them, you know, they're you know, homemade machine guns and stuff like that. And what's happening, and there's been no increase in violent crime or anything like that. If anything, there's probably been a drop, because that's the last place you want to start a shooting with it. Everyone shoots you back. But the point of that is, it didn't take taking over Washington, D.C. It didn't take taking over Congress. It didn't take putting, you know, a Second Amendment absolutist in the White House. Not for Missouri. What it took was for them to have enough people in the state legislature, and that wasn't even the Libertarian Party. I don't think they have a single, you know, Libertarian Party member in there. But the point is, when people realize that they're not going to put up with something, and that the power's really in them, that cultural and community understanding goes downstream to politics pretty darn quick. So my focus is on that. Let's show people the power that they have, not just to affect things on a political level, but to just refuse to comply and watch that work its way downstream to how the rules are ordered and affected.
You watch the militarization of the police, which, you know, and I'm only 35, but from when I was a kid to how I see the police, you know, I'm in a town of not even 2,000 people. And there is one police vehicle that patrols the area, just drives around, and I'm sure it's like two guys on different shifts. You know, I haven't really explored me.
Is it a 1978 Dodge Stinger?
But it's a big old 4x4. But these, you know, they get out to go to the, you know, gas station or something, and it looks like they're ready to go to war in Iraq. You know, they got bulletproof vests on. You know, they're all strapped and clapped, and I think, like, man, it's so different from when I was a kid meeting police officers, you know?
And you know what's, oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut
you.
No,
No, go ahead.
Do you know what's scary about that? Do you know what started that whole thing? The war on drugs was the justification for it, but that's not actually what started it. The Pentagon had all this stuff, and it was going to be cheaper to just have police departments or whoever wanted it in local governments pay to come and get it, like not pay for it, but just pay for the cost of moving it, than for them to just destroy it. And they didn't feel comfortable in loading that on the civilian market. So that's how the 1033 Military Surplus Act happened. And it had already been happening informally before that, but that formalized it and took it into overdrive. It was literally the government just going, what are we going to do with these, you know, old drones and these armored personnel carriers and these freaking Hummers, and like, what are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with all this tactical equipment? Well, but they couldn't just say, hey, we're going to give all this stuff away. We're going to give all this freaking, like, you know, weapon systems away. They had to try to justify it. So they said, well, the dangerous drug cartels and the criminal gangs, that we need to have them fight. And so they created this propaganda campaign of making the public, you know, the soccer moms and the retirement NIMBYs who run this country secretly, to you know, be so scared of their community that they demanded that the cops had this. And then what came with all that equipment was the training and how to use it. And so they found the most tactical people they could find to push the most paranoid training. You should look up, if you look up, like, oh man, I'm forgetting the name of the term, but the continuing weapons and there's another term, education, that police are going through that goes with this military equipment. They're being taught to be paranoid. and to have their head on a swivel constantly. They're told things. There's this one guy that was saying, after you shoot a perp, you're going to go home and have the best sex with your wife you'll ever have. They're literally romanticizing the idea of shooting people and killing them. They literally give tips on how to escalate a confrontation in front of a body cam in such a way that it looks justifiable and that you can write a report explaining how it was unavoidable and it was that person's fault entirely. Like,
and that's the worst people to do it to.
Yeah, exactly.
They're the least mentally trained. Like in the the military, you get lots of different like mental exercises and training.
Yes,
you're giving it to Joe Schmo, the guy who could barely run. Cleared freaking recruitment.
Those were the turds in high school that got bullied and picked on, and they want to become your local cops.
Fashy now, not all.
I'm just saying.
That's what I'm here for.
I went to school with a bunch of guys that are cops now, and let me tell you, those guys weren't on sports teams, didn't have hot girlfriends, and got slammed into lockers.
They're the ones that walk up to your window, grabbing their belt like, shit, how fast you think you're going, son?
I saw a meme that said, headgear relative to how likely you are to get a ticket. And it was like, if he's wearing a ball cap, it's 50-50. If he's got what was it? Ball cap, shaved head, not looking good. Cop hat, not looking good. Shaved head, definitely not looking good. State trooper cap, just write your own ticket. Just go ahead and write the ticket yourself. But the problem is they're getting military equipment and militarized training, but without the U.S. The U.S. military code of conduct that comes with it. Like any veteran or active duty troop will tell you, if you're engaging the enemy, you better damn sure make sure it's the enemy. In fact, usually they got to fire at you first. Like it's like there's no justifiable reason for the military to have to show more restraint against ISIS and Al Qaeda than our law enforcement officers do to us.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, it's
and that's where we are.
When Singapore was revolting back in what was it, 99? They had that Asian financial crisis, right? And Indonesia was in bad.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, I said Singapore. I went Singapore, but Indonesia was having the riots because they wanted to overthrow the president and all that. We were down there because I was on deployment. We were going to get sent in and take over the airports. We get U.S. citizens out of there and stuff. And we had riot classes leading up to it. And they gave us a rules of engagement. And we cannot attack unless we were shot first.
Yep.
That's just how it is.
You weren't allowed to use tear gas either because of the Geneva Convention, right?
Right. So we just
they can use it here.
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
They cannot use it. I remember being a neocon and seething at the fact that our military couldn't use the riot control measures against like Iraqi, protesters who, wanted the foreign invaders to leave their country, that they couldn't use that against them the same way that the cops would use that against us if we were mad about something. Mm-hmm. And I remember after many years later thinking, why did I not look at that and say, this violates the Geneva Convention and is seen as chemical warfare. But they'll do it to us if enough of us hang out in a parking lot and get rowdy enough.
Well, and you see all these videos now where people are, those the sidewalk heroes that they're like, I'm not going to tell you anything when they get pulled over, and the cop just keeps getting more and more worked up.
Yes,
but every one of those, the officer, and I assume they're trained to say, well, we need to see your ID because of domestic terrorism and all these other things. But domestic terrorism is, that's such a... I never heard anyone worry about domestic terrorism before, and now everyone is a domestic terrorist, and like you said, a lot of these guys are good guys, a lot of them are good guys. A lot of them are genuine in their thought process, maybe not well informed, but I think most officers are genuine in wanting to protect
most
their community.
People are trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you're being told that everyone is a domestic terrorist, I mean, that's what an amount of weight you're having to carry every day.
Oh yeah, very stressful. Their job sucks.
Yep.
Yeah. I would never.
They're being told to have their head on a swivel 24/7, and they are shown, videos of cops who, they just pulled someone over and, for a speeding ticket, and they, looked sideways a little too long and got shot in the head, and they died instantly. And they get shown, they don't get shown the sanitized version we get shown on the news. They get shown the body cam footage where they're, writhing and getting shot at, whatever. And they get shown it over and over and over again. And these things happen, but they're exceedingly rare. It's kind of similar to us being shown COVID death porn for weeks and months on end, and showing people dying on respirators. Yes, those things happen, but you have to look at the relative risk compared to what it is they're trying to take from you. Same thing here. Yes, that could happen, but if the alternative is that we now have 1 million cops who are walking around thinking that anyone could just take them out any minute and act that way, and are taught how to attack them first before they attack me, that's how we end up with what we have now. And the especially the problem is body cam footage at least exposes us to the reality of what's happening. But there are a unnervingly high number of people who will watch that body cam footage and go, they're in the right. Why did that person mouth off at them? I don't know why they mouthed off at him. Why did he shoot him? Like, okay, great. He mouthed off on him. It's not something I would do. But then he beat him to death, or, put him in a wheelchair, or, beat him up, wrongfully arrested him and tased his dog. What about that part? Like, yeah, maybe he couldn't have said the F word, but that justifies that. And again, this is where we need to meet people where they are on things that they recognize the government's in the wrong, help them on that, and then show them that the whole thing is a problem. Even the thing that they've convinced themselves. There's a lot of people who totally understand that police brutality is a huge problem, and totally understand that the government is in it with major corporations to screw the rest of us over. And then they'll turn around and say that organization should be in charge of my healthcare and my education and my children's education. And they should ensure that I get paid right. Like, the people you're in the streets begging not to kill you, and they respond by tear gassing you, that's who should be in charge of your healthcare, huh? But instead of trying to argue with them about that, we have to meet them where they are on things they already recognize the government's in the wrong, help them organize to fight effectively against that, and then start building that rapport with them and getting them, I like to call it getting them weaponized, getting them, activated as activists who want to do good in their communities. Yeah. Exposing them to the reality that this is true about everything. This is how government works on everything. Not because they're uniquely bad people, but because government as an organization is a uniquely bad way to organize people and to distribute goods and services. It's not a good way of doing things. It is central planning. It's a centrally planned monopoly that is enforced with violence and financed through theft. There's not a single feedback input that can happen to hold them accountable or give them any good reason to provide good services. It doesn't work well. There are better ways to do this. And that's what You Were the Power does. We get people we meet them where they are on something they already agree with us on. We help them organize, and then we show them that this is true about everything. And that the answer is taking the power out of their hands and putting it back in ours where it always belongs.
I'm running for mayor of Fort Collins now. This is happening.
Do it. I want access when I come back. I want access to those underground meetings that happen in Fort Collins with the power families. Yeah. Just want to sit in on those.
And it's not. We're not sitting here bashing the police. That's not. But the idea. I mean, I'm not.
There's nothing wrong with check and balances.
Accountability. There's
it's accountability.
Yeah, it's people who have been given power, and then the few that abuse their power. Which it's not a few. It's not a few. There are many cases of people that abuse their powers to different levels. Especially, I think when you see the police doing it, it's really a symptom of something far deeper. It's the end result of this whole buildup of propaganda that's been taking place. And I think a lot of it is, like you said, the paranoia is from coming from the federal government, because I think they're realizing they're on a very, very fragile system they're running on right now. It's not like the 60s and 50s where left and right and you had ABC and NBC and CBS and that was it, and people form their opinions off of that. Now your ability to have information from anywhere instantly
at your fingertips. Yeah, at your fingertips. Yeah.
Well, COVID went
in
backwards
real
on him.
time.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
If you think about it, COVID went backwards on him. They were like, oh, this will scare everybody. We'll get everybody lined up. We'll get everybody perfectly how we want them, and we'll win. But when it started flipping and going the other way, like what we were talking about earlier, it scared the shit out of them. And they were like, oh, like we are waking up. People are, realizing, what is going on from the very bottom. And then now it's just coming together and putting all that energy and everything in a positive way and hopefully changing it for the better. But I mean,
absolutely. No,
we'll
that's
see.
100%. People understand that there's a problem. We have to show them what the problem is, because it's very easy to go, hey, the problem is the Democrats, or which, by the way, that's true. But it's also, but it's
also
easy.
Republicans.
There's a lot of people in the middle. There's a lot of people in the middle. Though.
It's easy to look at the war on drugs and go, whose fault that is? Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan. And sure, and I'd throw in Joe Biden as well, but it's not individuals and it's not a specific political party. It's the entire structure. And it's the fact that when you have your society organized in this kind of governmental system, any problem is going to be treated as an opportunity for it to grow, because it operates like a parasite. Government, at least structured this way, I would argue all government, but at the very least, a government structured this way has to operate as a parasite, because it doesn't provide good value for what it takes, right? It's not a good service provider. If this were a store, it would go out of business. The only way it can stay in business is if its financing model is going around and putting a gun in everyone's face and saying, you have to pay for our services and we'll, give you whatever we think that you should get. And so, that's what we have. And so we have to show people the problem isn't the side you hate. COVID's a perfect example. During the COVID regime, Donald Trump was president. Donald Trump was convinced by the Anthony Fauci's and the CDC and NIH in their opening months that the best way was the lockdowns and ramping up Operation Warp Speed and all these other things. And I remember his tweets, which he has since deleted, that said things like, Sweden was in the wrong by not locking down, and attacking Brian Kemp as late as May when he ended his lockdowns earlier than Trump wanted him to. I'm sure Kristi Noem, your governor, was getting all sorts of pressure to lock down. Trump was attacking people who were against the lockdowns, and in other countries, not just here. Donald Trump got convinced that that was the best way forward. And the only way to make locking everyone down and not allowing people to earn a living, to make that tolerable, was to give everyone money for nothing. So that came with the CARES Act. And so you had Donald Trump attacking the handful of congressmen that wouldn't vote for it. Thomas Massie, Justin Amash, I think there was one or two others. He vilified them. He said, we're going to primary them. They hate this country. They don't believe in America. And meanwhile, it was the CARES Act and all of the nearly $12 trillion in spending that Donald Trump signed off on in a year and a half's time that led to running up so much debt, $7 trillion of debt, running up so much debt so quickly that the Federal Reserve, to finance that debt, had to print out almost half, like 40-something% of all the money that has ever been created ever. And the ancillary effect of that is the double-digit inflation that we're experiencing now. So if you're looking at inflation and you're looking at what happened during the COVID regime and you're blaming the Democrats, they were certainly a part of it, but it was not just their fault. Donald Trump did not stop the CDC. He went along with it. He complained about Anthony Fauci, but it looked more like he was upset that Fauci was getting more attention than him. He certainly didn't stop him from doing anything. You want to talk about a beta move? Imagine a boss who lets their employee talk about him however he wants to, gives him full authorization, the biggest budget he could hope for to do whatever he wants while saying to everyone that he hates what he's doing. Anyway, he did that. That was Donald Trump that was in office when all those things happened. So this is not a Democrat problem or a Republican problem. This is a government problem. And until we realize that the problem is too much power in the hands of too few people, and the answer is to give that power back to the people and let them make their own decisions and have their own responsibility back and their own power back, that's what's going to fix this.
Well, I think you see a lot, in some of the comments here, people are, the beauty of Trump was that he was not a system politician. And I think a lot of people who realize what you're saying is that the government is abusive and is just way too concentrated. And here we had our first official outsider come in and roll through the Republican Party, and everyone was thrilled about it. And then it turned out that he was just as weak as everyone else when it came to but the beauty is it was romanticized, because at least we didn't have Hillary Clinton in there during the COVID time.
God. I want to be clear about something. We owe Donald Trump a debt of gratitude. If for nothing else, we owe him a debt of gratitude for two things. He almost single-handedly ended the Bush dynasty having any kind of having power ever again. And he almost single-handedly ended the Clinton dynasty. So
that broke Devin's heart.
What's
Bush
that?
dynasty.
Don't listen to him. He's so full of shit.
Devin's a huge Bush lover. So,
he's a recent addition to the Libertarian Party. That motherfucker, I was Libertarian before you even got pussed.
Well, and when it came to Trump, he also exposed, I think, on a grand scale, how biased media coverage is, which I think a lot of people didn't have an idea on how propagandized that had become. I was friends with a few Russians in Colorado, and I was talking to them about CNN and some of the others, and I was like, doesn't this remind you of Pravda a little bit? And then it's exactly the same as what they told me between Pravda during the Soviet Union years and CNN and NBC and Fox News. A lot of those, all of them are very propagandized to whatever leanings they have. And that's why I think You Are the Power .net is so fascinating, because really, if you want actual change, it has to be with your neighbor. It has to be with your community. It has to be with you. We talk crap about the police officers, but have you gone and talked to your police officer? Do you know his name? Do you know what, a lot of that stuff is all fixed when you get to know the actual people behind this. There's just this fake wall that we can't cross. We have to put them behind there.
When you get involved locally, first you get outraged because you will discover just how much garbage is happening that you had no idea, just because they could and no one's watching. That's the first thing that happens. The next thing that happens is if you stick with it, you start developing relationships with the other people who are showing up, with the city council people, with candidates that are running for things. If you've got a sheriff system, with the sheriff, with the deputies, with the officers, you start developing, relationships, some good, some not so good. You start developing those, and you start getting a better picture of what's going on there. The other thing that happens is you start developing some relationships with local media. Local media in most metro areas, in most communities, understand the local media has to put out about an hour or two, in some cases 2 hours a day of stuff. It has to be something, and it has to be at least somewhat interesting. And the easiest, and it has to only be in like 60, 90, and 120 second chunks.
Yeah, that'd be terrible. There's
it's got to
happen today, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
You have to have something, and you can add some national, but the whole thing is you need it to be local, especially now with the internet. People can find out about that anywhere else. They want to hear about, the cat that was up the tree, right? Like, they want to hear about the local stuff. And the easiest way for them to fill that time is with police reports. If you don't give them other stuff, they just take police reports and whatever footage the police can give them, including mug shots, and they just put it out without any kind of very often without any kind of criticism. They just say they just and they'll interview the police officer to basically recite what's on the report, and so they just basically give police reports as news uncritically. One of the things that we're doing with You Are the Power is we're giving them something else to report on. So when we get involved in these local communities, one of the first things we do is we show those activists how to find all their local media, file the police the file press releases, get the email addresses of their local media, send them emails, offer to be available for interviews. They're happy to have someone else to interview, just to be able to fill that news time. A lot of the propagandization that's happening at the local media level is happening for no other reason than the police and the local government are the only ones who have like a steady supply of stuff to hand the news anchors and the editors and the producers. And so if we do that, if we add that, we're helping to combat at a media level as well, by not just giving the uncritical version of what the police said or what the city government said. And that's a powerful thing we're doing too. And it really, You Are the Power just really helps turbocharge all of this. But you don't need You Are the Power to do this stuff. It's easier to do it. We have training on how to be an effective activist, how to do effective messaging and things like that. We're actually doing that right after Thanksgiving, the 29th to the December 3rd. We're doing a 4-day training session online. So if you sign up, you can be a part of that. It's free. We offer a network of activists who will help you both online and in person with this stuff. But honestly, even if this didn't exist, you could still do this. It would just be harder. But we can take back our communities. And it really just, it's like you said, man, just get out there and meet the people and start making our case to people.
Spike, I appreciate you coming on the show. I know it's been a little bit over an hour and you stayed a little late with us, and I appreciate that a lot. It's just, I want people to join up on You Are This Power, or youarethepower.net. And, not just sign up for membership, because, that's just, you pretty much just sign up, but what they can actually do, what you're looking for people that when they sign up, and a lot of it is overwhelming, we're going through this whole kitty litter fiasco right now. I don't know. Have you heard about this? The kitty litter fiasco?
Oh, with the schools that with the kitty
joke. Yeah.
I was going to say
joke, but then it turned into a real thing.
So I've yet to have, as I understand it, maybe I will admit I haven't been following Littergate on a daily basis, but the last I saw it, my understanding was that they hadn't actually, there were rumors in multiple
that's
places.
how it was.
They hadn't actually confirmed that it had happened in any. They haven't actually confirmed a school that has this as a policy.
Well, let me get you.
That may have been. Yeah.
Let me get you caught up on Littergate here, because
Okay.
I'm stealing that. So thank you. So it started with Devin's wife, who is a track coach out there in Colorado. And it was brought to her attention that in the school board, they were going to have a vote on whether to allow cat litter in the bathroom for the kids. And this is why I'm bringing this up, is so we talked about that. They put it to vote. And I think you said what, like 10% of the kids there are furries?
Oh, I just asked my kids about it, and it was ballpark.
Yeah. And so I thought, wow, that's hilarious. We'll discuss that on the show, because of course Colorado would have a vote on it like that. And then as we had talked about it, I told my uncle about it. Now his wife was the last teacher to teach at a one-room schoolhouse in northern Minnesota, up in the Angle. And she said that it was brought before her board around the same exact time. And so I'm working here in Sioux Falls, and my boss is out of Del Rapids, which is a tiny town of like 3,000 people. And we were laughing about it because his kids are in private school. They're not in a public school. And so he's, I'm telling him about the cat litter story, and he's like, oh my word, that's such a libtard thing to have happen. And he's telling his buddies, and his buddies go, we just talked to our kids and they're bringing it to a vote in this little town in Del Rapids. So they called up the prince, or the principal up there, and he's like, yeah, it's coming to a vote. We're going to vote it down though. And I'm starting to see all it. I talked to my friend yesterday in Spencer, Iowa. Same thing, came to a vote in Spencer, Iowa. there's, it's just something odd that's going on right now.
You think CIA sending people around to like
It's
start
weird,
a petition to like get it on the ballot?
I was going to say this feels like a psyop. I've yet
Being
because
punked.
I've heard
Ashton
of this.
Kutcher's running around doing some shit.
Yeah, I've heard of these votes on this, and I've heard of like people getting upset about it. I've yet to see like an actual litter box. And I mean, all these kids have their phone cameras and stuff. I'm not seeing on TikTok where someone's like, "Hey, look, here's an actual." This feels like a psyop, and I will admit that it feels like a psyop. It might, and the thing is, the unfortunately powerful thing about psyops is if it goes on long enough, there will be litter boxes in an increasing number of schools. Like they'll make it happen. They will manifest that reality.
You're just gonna go into a school and take a dump. You're gonna end up in prison.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're gonna be like, "Sir, this is exactly why we can't let adults in school."
Is this human or is it bear?
Litter box. And
when they arrest a furry, they have to put them in the dog pound.
Yeah. Well, it'll help their health cycles because it'll change colors. It'll tell them what's going on in the inside.
That's the thing, right? Like, I mean, there is a silver lining to all things, but also when they arrest the kid, they have to play "In the Arms of an Angel" and like do it in slow mo. And
Sarah
like
McLachlan's
show the gate closing on them and them like that.
We need your donations so that we can feed these furries.
All these furries.
With your help, we can feed Rodney, who we just arrested.
See, you stayed too long, Spike. I had to drink into litter gate.
Instead of a litter box, they just put like a fucking fire hydrant. Like in the corner with a little.
Well, that's the thing because it would be speciesist. It would be speciesist or speciesist.
Speciesist.
You're right. The second word. It would be speciesist to have or breedist to have a litter box and not have a fire hydrant or one of those like you know what they have at the airport? Like they have the little area and it has just like fake grass and sometimes a fire hydrant or some kind of upright thing. They'll have to have that. Like, because that's not right. Like the dog, I mean, they'd have to have dogs, and then a lot of furries are like these weird in betweeny, like birdie-like creatures. So they'd probably need some kind of like newspaper out in a little, like a nest with newspaper. Like, I mean, you would have to accommodate that. I mean,
they all go and collect little parts from the school, and then they build it in one of the bathrooms. And they're like, "Here we go,"
and they make the human kids do that. They're like, "Listen, part of being a good pet parent is taking care." And they're like, "This is Rodney. Why are we having to do this for Rodney?" And so Well,
I'm going to bring it full circle here. You'll be impressed here. The reason I brought it up in the first place was because so many people that I talked to, all parents, had no clue what was being discussed on their board, school board at all. And I think that's sort of the most interesting thing about it is everyone, the majority of people didn't even know who to talk to about it. They were just, and that's what sort of youarethepower.net is all about is getting to know your local community and the people who have the ability to make changes in your city or, within these small departments within your county or town.
Because I think that's where it started, right? Is the moms and everything trying to get into the school board to start at block 1. And then if you help protect and guide those children correctly, you build a bigger net for a better generation coming up. And then you just keep stacking those blocks up. You start with the school board. I mean, that's probably, I wouldn't say the easiest way to get in, but I mean, that is a great way to get in to help help correct it.
It's a very effective thing, especially because school boards, a lot of people we're kind of propagandized to think that a certain type of person should be in the city council or in the mayor's office. And we are looking for people that have previous government experience when really they don't necessarily, or they have to be like a well-known business owner or something. Whereas with school board, it's like, I'm a mom. Okay, let's vote for the mom. Like it's easier in a way for people to get their mind around like just voting for someone who looks exactly like them for it. So it is a good way to do it. The thing that happens though, man, is when they get in that school board, they realize just how little authority they have. Yeah. Almost every decision that they make has already been made at the federal level or the state level. And then the only option they get is, do you want that money and all the strings that are attached to it? Or do you want to not have that money and have to do another bake sale? And that's, you can think, when I talk about Republican versus Democrat, you can think Republican George Bush and the Republicans and Democrats in Congress that passed the No Child Left Behind Act, which fully centralized schooling into the federal government, with then some of it being done at the state level and almost nothing being done at the local level. So that's yet another opportunity. So when we do anything that involves us helping people organize against their school board, or to, people that are deciding to run for school board or anything like that, part of that conversation is, okay, great, you can get in there, you can fight on this, but what you're going to find is that the real problem is that these decisions are being made at the state and at the federal level. And a perfect example of that was when a lot of the parents were coming out and speaking out against the mask mandates, the possibility of vaccine mandates for their kids, even though the data shows that a child is more likely to end up in a hospital from complications related to the COVID vaccine than from COVID itself. That is CDC data, so don't fact check me on. That was their own data that said that. When they showed up to protest these things and to speak at when I say protest, I mean speak at the school board meetings, the Biden administration moved to label them domestic terrorists and invoke the Patriot Act on them. So there's two lessons there. The first lesson is that this stuff is being guided at the state and federal level. And again, that just speaks to the need to decentralize things, take the power back, put it back in the hands of parents and our neighborhoods and communities, and out of the hands of the state and federal governments. But the other lesson there is, when the government gives you a pretext, a reason that they need more power, ignore the reason that they're giving you. Even if you agree with the reason, ignore that reason and look at what they're asking for. And ask yourself if you would like them to ever use that against you. And if the answer is no, then oppose it. If they came to you and said, in order to stop global terrorism that's targeting you and everything you care about, we need the Patriot Act. If enough Americans and enough people at Congress looked at that and said, well, you know what, 9/11 was a horrific thing, and we definitely need to do something to stop this, but I don't want that used against me, we wouldn't be having the problems we're having right now. So whether it is terrorism, whether it is white supremacy or defending democracy, that's the left's using that a lot, whether it's illegal immigrants or gang violence, whether it's dangerous trans ideology activist, whatever it is, if they're pushing for some draconian measure that goes way past the scope of whatever the thing is they're talking about, oppose it on its face, because inevitably the gun that you're giving them is going to be turned and pointed at you and people like you, because that's what government does.
When people sign up for youarethepower.net, what are you hoping they do after they sign up?
So after they sign up, they get an email that gives them some immediate guidance on things they can do. Things like, here's our social media, here's content that you can share, please invite other people to join as well. You also get put in a Facebook group, or you're given the link to join a Facebook group if you're for members only if you're on Facebook. If you're on Discord, you're given a link to join our Discord server. And if you're on Twitter, you're given a link to join our Twitter community. Your information is also given, and all we need is your the city that you live in and your phone number and email address. We give it to the regional organizer in your region, and in some states, we are now starting to have state organizers. We just launched in May, so we're pardon our maintenance as we continue to grow. But in some states, you'll be linked with a state organizer. But no matter where you are in the country, including Alaska and Hawaii, you'll be lined up with a regional organizer. And when things happen that you find out about, you're given an email address to send it to, so the information can be vetted and we can figure out how we can help on that cause, if at all. And then the organizers work directly with the members and activists in that area and anyone online who wants to help to organize around those things and to fight for justice. And the interesting thing is, most of what we've been able to do, we haven't had to do a single in-person thing. All we had to do is beat them up on the internet, and they backed off. Did the right thing. That's happened many times. We didn't think it would be like that. We didn't think it would just take ratioing them a couple times on their Facebook page and their relatives going, what was that? What are you doing? You're trying to take the lady's property because she has an RV and her home burned down and she's living in the RV. So you tried to steal her land. That was enough to make them back off. So there's,
so great, the power of the internet.
It's incredible. And it goes back to the whole idea behind you are the power. If enough people get together, look the government in the face and go, this is stupid. Stop doing this. We're not going along with this. They very often back off. And if they dig down deeper, great. We're in it for the long haul and we'll keep fighting. And all we're going to do, all that does is make it easier for us moving forward to make the case that the problem isn't just this one issue. The problem is the power that these people have to even be able to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
Spike, thanks so much for joining us. We're really
Thank you.
grateful for it. And anything else you'd like to plug before you leave?
Well, first of all, thank you for your patience and your grace in letting me come back on. When I wrote you, I was like, listen, I can't, I don't even, if you block my number, I get it. But that's because Brian's like, do you want me to tell him? Like, no, I don't think they ever want to hear from you again. I said, let me text you. Let me text him. And so he gave me your number and I'm like, look, man, I don't even have a good excuse. It was bad. It was bad. And it makes you feel better. Happened to a few people.
No, you're building all of this stuff and you're putting, believe me, the show completely understood.
Don't make excuses for me. Don't make excuses for me. It was terrible. Twice. I'm like, yeah, no, I'll be there. No, I'm not gonna be there. So I'm sorry.
Was it 3? Whatever time it was, I went off the rails last time. I was like, "What are you fucking?"
I would have gone off the rails if I worked. If I had whoever it was, whether it was some great person or just some schmuck, like whoever it is, or some big schmuck, whatever. And they're like, oh. The second time you ghost? No, I'm blocking you. I don't want to hear about you. If anyone mentions you, I'm going to link them to the episode that you were supposed to be on. So no, thank you guys very much for giving me the opportunity to do that, to come on and make good on that. And again, we're going to have to fix this because no one else is going to. Everyone else either thinks this is the right way forward or thinks that they're powerless to do anything about it. Mm-hmm. And in any, I'm going to give a very quick overview of the idea of the dissemination of new ideas. You've got a very small group of people who are innovators. They come up with the new things. They come up with the innovative solutions that are going to fix problems. Then you've got the early adopters who did it immediately and want to spread the message to others. That's us. We're the innovators and the early adopters. We've got to reach the early majority, the people who, are cool with new ideas, but they need to see that it works and makes sense first. And then the late majority who maybe doesn't even know there's a problem, but they just want to go with what everyone else is doing. They just want to go with what's popular. We have to spread our ideas, understanding that model. And the best model to do that is to reach people who intuitively understand something is wrong, help them organize to fight against that, and then use that as an opening conversation about the foundational problem behind how this thing even happened in the first place and how we can work together to fix it. And if you want to be a part of that, go to youarethepower.net and sign up today and be a part of it. If you've got lots of money, you can make a donation. We need money like any other organization does. But if you either don't have the money or want to see what it's like first, membership is free. We'd love you to be a part of it. We need people on the ground doing the work. We'd love you to be a part of it.
Spike Cohen, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Wow.
It's everywhere. There you guys go.
If I had $500, I'd donate to it because I'd get all that swag bag stuff he's talking about on there. T-shirts and stickers.
I had to surprise you, Devin.
You got me. I was like, oh fuck, I haven't looked where he is yet. I'm like, God damn, I was doing a quick Google search when you're fucking playing.
I know that. I told him before. I had it like all planned out before. I'm like, listen, he's gonna be busy looking it up on his computer. You won't even know he popped in. So
that's why I thought it was fake for a second. I thought you just pulled it from another thing. And I was like, God, you're gonna make Devin all pissy again. I love it.
Great show.
Yeah, it was good.
Any comments? I mean, look at what we've done, guys. 2 years of Phantom Fact Society. We had Richard Gage on. We've had Brad Olson on. We had Brett Cybrel on. Flat Earth Dave. Now we got former vice presidential candidate from the 2020 campaign and founder of youarethepower.net, Spike Cohen, to come on our little show.
Who we're going to target next with our weekly fucking where in the world is fucking blah blah.
I think we just keep it.
Yeah.
And we'll see what youarethepower.net's all agitated about.
Yeah,
we'll follow that. Yeah,
I would love that. I really hope that it catches heat and does something. And because I mean, like I said, people are already waking up. Now it's just pointing him into that direction to keep.
Well, and it's a personal responsibility thing.
Yeah,
like,
very true.
I feel like it comes down to, do you make it a concern in your life? And if you make it a concern in your life, there'll be other men and women that will see that and realize, man, maybe I should make that a concern in my life too. A lot of it's like the cat litter thing is why I brought Littergate. Is why I brought up Littergate, was because it was interesting to see parents' reaction to it. You know, at first
most of them were like what?
And they're like, well, how do I even find out if that's
no clue? Yeah.
How do I find out that's going on in my school or not? Because I don't agree with that. You know, and it could very well be a psyop to test to see what they can get away with in school board meetings with, you know, who knows? Yeah. But it's I think it's interesting to see how and every parent has reacted the same way. They've contacted their board. They've is this a real thing? You know, and that's just sort of like
which just shows
prerequisite to what could happen with other things.
Well, it's just the disconnect, right? They don't even know where to go.
Yeah.
It's like, where do I even start? Like, that's bad. Like, you need to know how to do shit. Like, navigate.
You remember the Milgram experiment episode that we did?
Which one is that one?
That was the one where
you shock people?
Yes, you shock people. And he wanted to see how he could get away with it. And the end result was, if you could categorize people and put them in boxes of responsibility with a higher responsibility above them, most people will do just about whatever they're told if they know they're not responsible for it. Yeah. And that's sort of like the dependency we see today, is everyone is in their own box of responsibility, you know, and like the DA has got their own, the cops got their own, the mayor's got his own, they're all shielded from each other, you know, and there's no personal responsibility. That's why Spikey says sometimes you just got to troll them on the internet, because their family just is like, wait, what's going on? What'd you do, Cheryl?
Are you really fucking that lady over like that?
Yeah.
Like, bro, that's messed up.
Yeah.
I like it.
youarethepower.net. Killer show today, guys.
Yeah. It's good.
That was well done. That was a nice little
he would get
up your sleeve.
He would get on his things and he's just going. I'm like, I want to talk right now, but I can't because there's nowhere to like interject, like, you know, without totally interrupting him. So I just let him roll.
Well, yeah, because I figured you would be on him about the when we talked last time about the extremist of some of the stuff.
Well, you're right. Got it right though, because he corrected it, and he's starting at the grassroots, the small. Like, that's the way to go. Like, when you talk to people, that's the problem. Is it's so macro, they don't even know where to start. And with this, and where he's going with it, he's going to build something that's going to be powerful. And it's going to take time to cultivate and grow it. But eventually, you're going to see people get elected governor from this and like stuff like that. He's growing it that way, changing it on a local level. You know what I mean? Well, and it's a long road. At least he's doing something. So when it comes to like the deficit spending and all that, I'm like, oh, we're fucked. Like, but that's just me knowing economics and shit like that. The way to fix it's going to be extremely painful. I don't know if anybody's willing to do it. And the only way you can do it is to get to that upper level, but you have to start small first and then go.
Well,
and I think he's going the right way.
What does Jordan Peterson always say? You got to take responsibility of yourself first.
Yeah. Accountability is huge.
And then your neighborhood, because you know everybody. Yeah, take control of your town, and then from there you can grow it bigger if you want to go county level.
It may not. It may be 2 generations later before you see the actual result of this. Mm-hmm. Like it's going to be a long process, but when we have a beautiful thing with the internet that none of us would have known what happened to Joshua Rohrer in North Carolina.
Right.
None of us would have known.
But also, all those people that are in that power position are also susceptible to the same power of being exposed on the internet. And then you have this conglomeration of haters for what you've done come upon you that you normally wouldn't get. So in all essence, it does affect change. It forces it, which is awesome because they're feared. You got them fearing the onslaught of their shit being exposed. Where before it's hard to expose, but now it's just you can get it out there quick,
Yes,
and then tons of people see it, and the next thing you know, it's viral. You know,
I mean,
well,
that's
and
what
on
you
micro
do,
levels, on micro levels too. You know, like New York Times. When you read the New York Times, wasn't discussing what was going on, and you know, bumfuck nowhere.
But
So,
you're right, though, at a micro level, because you're going to see those people at the grocery store. You're going to see those people at the post office. And you're like, Roger, seriously? You fucking piece of shit? Like, this is what we're doing? Like, not again. We're not doing this again. You know, that you know, like you hate to bash them, but like you bring that to them and you put it right in front of their face. And hopefully they realize, oh, yeah.
And it's a lot different when you're talking to the person face to face. You know, you're not going to be a horrible troll to them face to face. You're going to discuss the actual issue, and you're going to hear the actual reasoning, and you're going to be able. One mind is going to be molded to the other, or at least you're going to have people that'll take sides on a local level. You know, what fascinated me was like my local area. There's no newspapers here. All the newspapers are gone, or any type of news information that you can get about
the majors
stuff that's going on. It's all packaged pieces, like he said, 60, 90, or 120 seconds long. And then that's it. And it's what they decide to talk about. There's no personal responsibility at a local level. They got rid of that years ago, when they got rid of the ability for local news and stuff like that. Or if I'm talking small towns. Small towns used to have their own little newspaper that discussed events and stuff. It's all gone. It's all gone now. And
where I went to high school at, there's still a small paper that gets put out, about it casts maybe like a 50-mile net on what's going on. But I mean, it's really fast. It's nice because you're like, oh shit, really? Like that's what's going on in Clarksville, and that's how could it affect Dover and blah blah blah. Like
the potlucks at 1:00 on Sunday at the rodeo grounds, perfect.
Yeah. Oh, hey, the football team went to the second round of the ball. It's building the community up, and it's also letting the community know, hey, like the school board is discussing this, so make sure you tune in and make sure you educate yourself on this. And hey, the mayor wants to do this and that, and it's just, I think it's really good, and it's like Corey said, that needs to come back, because that is a great way to just inform the people what's going on, because I mean, a lot of people still read newspapers. A lot of people aren't social and tech savvy, so they're not going to get on a Facebook or
and we're never going to bring back paper and print like
I know,
but there's different, this you are the power. This you are the power.net. I mean, this is the newspaper of our day, the Facebooks and the Twitter, and you can make it work on a local level. And once you start doing that, everyone needs a town crier too. There has to be someone that's just talking about crazy weird stuff that's going on in your local community. But if you get that one guy that does that, and everyone else will, at least it generates a conversation that would never have been generated otherwise. I mean, I don't know what else you can ask for. You start talking about people, well, you shouldn't vote for Republican, you vote for Democrat. You're not going to change that mentality. Not overnight. Not over after, 200 years of propaganda. You're not going to change that overnight. No. That takes a long time. But if you can appeal to humans on a one-on-one basis, you can change small little things that'll lead to people realizing, oh, you know what? These guys are sort of parasites. They are sort of parasites. Good shit, gentlemen. All right, next week is Thanksgiving, so everyone gets it off. I'm gonna find an older episode and replay it, re-edit it. So
cool.
Yeah, so have a happy Thanksgiving, everyone. We'll be back come December, and we're gonna do some Christmas murder mysteries.
Ooh.
That sounds nice.
Let's right along that new Santa movie that's coming out where he's fucking killing the bad guys. Santa's, he's like, they're on my naughty list.
There was another good a Santa movie that came out a couple years ago. I want to say Mel Gibson played the Santa, and it was fantastic. I mean, it was really good. I need to just give me 2 seconds. Was it Bad Santa? No, it wasn't. That's the other one. Damn it.
That's Billy Bob Thornton, bro.
I know. It was on Amazon is when I watched it. It was really good. God damn it.
Fucking Google search faster. I have to take a leak.
I'm looking. Oh, it's called Fat Man. Fat Man. Check it out on Amazon. It is a great watch.
It's funny.
Fat Man. Yeah. But it's like that. It's like that where he's like it's a Santa Claus with fucking, rifles and bullets and explosions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Have a good rest of your Sunday. And remember, stuff like this, sign up for Patreon, help us out. It really helps generate new content like this. Like we want to do more of this. I think we can all agree, right? Like we like the stories. I love doing stories, Phantom Fact stories and stuff like that. But I also think there's a place for interviews like this on the show on a more regular basis too. I think.
Yeah, we got to get Ben Shapiro on here, bro.
Ben, no.
Is that too conservative?
He's not conservative. He's a neocon.
He would take over he would take over. You would never let you interject.
Well, no, because if anyone can compete with that Jew, it's this JW. But yes, I just say
we have a showdown.
I have a rule. No, Ben Shapiro. I mean, honestly, if we got Ben Shapiro on the show, it would be great. But also, you got to realize that Ben Shapiro is ego driven and doesn't want to be on our show. He gets no.
If you call him out enough, like you do Neil deGrasse Tyson, if you hate him that much, he'll come on just for the good debate. He's like, I haven't had a great debate in years. Yeah,
I think so. Should we do just a Molech news segment and then play Ben Shapiro clips?
You just want to play the jingle.
Everyone, you can sing along too.
Sing along.
Out there to eat kids and Jews. It's Moloch. Moloch news.
Yeah. Moloch news, everybody.
Update, everybody.
It's an update, everybody. That's my favorite part of the thing, I think.
Nice tight fit. That's a classic.
All right. Hey, we'll give it a try. See what happens. All right, gentlemen. Have a good rest of your Sunday. Thank you, everyone, on the stream.
Yes, for chatting. Yeah,
sure. We appreciate that. The Bill, Tara Anderson. Thanks for the questions and the comments, and that always helps.
Was Spike gonna share our conversation or no? I didn't even get to ask him.
I mean, if I was Spike, I probably would just walk away from this and be like, "Thank God that's over."
Okay.
I basically
we'll share it.
Did he listen to my rants?
Yeah, share this. Yeah, if you were one of the
clip
ones,
it to a 3-parter. Yeah, to the times that you and Devin were on there in the first time, and then we'll just make a little trilogy of it, the Spike Cohen trilogy.
And also remember to follow us on Phantom_Facts at TikTok because we'll be posting segments of this interview along with different little articles and video clips that tied into what we were talking about. So follow us on Phantom Facts. We're trying to get to 10,000 followers. We're at 6,200 right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're moving right on up. So we'll be posting new content all throughout the week. So all right, everyone, have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. See you. Bye.